Did you work for the city?
Yes, I did.
And when did you work for the city? What years?
April 2007 to April 2009.
In what capacity were you employed by the city?
Firefighter, paramedic.
Were you a paramedic when you started?
No, I was not.
And you got this training through the city?
No, I was in paramedic school at the time.
And describe what your basic duties were with the fire department.
Basically, it was a first-class firefighter initially, and EMT basic. Running ambulance calls was primary duty, and then after I received my paramedic certification, I became a paramedic and ran ambulance calls for the city. Basically, was the primary role in firefighter.
Tell me about the running the ambulance calls. What did that entail?
Basically, when the tones went off, it was a response to the address based on what dispatch told us, and we would respond and treat the patients as we saw them at the scene.
And then was there a reporting requirement?
Yes, there was. After the ambulance calls, we were required to do patient care reports. Basically, it was the coding and the treatments given to the patient, and then a narrative describing the actual events of care given.
Tell me about the coding. What does that mean?
There were codes that were put on. There was basically a big code, which was the response code, which was used to determine our level of response to the scene and what care was given. And that was a code that we were required to put on the patient care reports, and they were supplemented with what is called an ICD-9 code.
And what is that?
That is a description of the actual condition of the patient.
Now, are these two different? Is there one like form to fill out and then a narrative as well?
It was a software program where you basically a plug-and-play software program where you plugged in your responses, and all the responses we were instructed, and all the responses were ALS level 1 emergency, and then you selected an ICD-9 code to support the ALS level 1 emergency.
And what does ALS mean?
Advanced life support.
And what's the importance of ALS?
It's basically care given by a paramedic level EMT.
Are there other? Is there other type of care?
Yes, sir. There's basic life support. There are different tiers. There are basic life support and advanced life support, and there are different tiers within each level. There are non-emergency response, emergency response, and ALS level 1. There's actually ALS non-emergency, ALS level 1 emergency, and ALS level 2 emergency.
Now, what's the difference between ALS 1, ALS 2, and ALS non-emergency?
ALS non-emergency would be when the care was given. An ALS call was done with care was given, but it was dispatched in such a manner that it was non-emergency dispatch. Which is an example that would be like transporting somebody from a hospital from a nursing home to a hospital, and then there was, say, an IV started. That would be an advanced life support function, but it was not like a non-emergency situation. You just transported them. That would be a non-emergency ALS call. ALS level 1 was when an advanced life support assessment and procedure were performed en route to the hospital by the paramedic, and ALS level 2 was when advanced procedures was performed or drugs were given.
And ALS 2?
ALS 2 is when drugs were given, like in a cardiac case.
And then basic life support, what's that, BLS?
Basic life support would be such things as a broken finger or twisted ankle, or someone simpler, non-critical, I guess, would be non-critical functions performed by an EMT.
How did you make a determination as to what the level of care was? ALS 1, ALS 2, BLS?
We were instructed that every call was an ALS level 1 emergency at Clyde Fire Department.
And was that your experience as a paramedic? Did you believe that all calls were ALS calls?
No, I also worked for Medic EMS out of Davenport, and through them, that was not my experience with Medic at any time. There were basic life support calls, and there were advanced life support calls. There was a difference between the two.
And how did you make that determination? What were the factors that you considered in making that determination?
The care given to the patient.
Such as, give us an example of what the difference would be.
Well, if you showed up and somebody had a broken finger and you gave them oxygen and transported to the hospital with a broken finger, that would be a basic life support function. If you showed up and there was a more critical injury or illness and you started an IV, that would be an advanced life support situation. Where if you started any interventions that were paramedic level were advanced life support, or if you used a cardiac monitor, started an IV, or obviously issued any drugs, that would be an advanced life support.
And did you have some disagreement as to how that coding took place in the fire department?
Yes, I had an issue with the fact that every call was coded as ALS level 1 emergency.
And when you say every call, I mean 100% of the calls?
100% of the calls. We were instructed 100% of the calls were to be coded ALS level 1 emergency.
And what was your concern about doing that?
I mean, from a common sense standpoint, if you treat somebody for a broken finger, say, you know it's not an advanced life support situation. It just didn't make sense to code that as ALS level 1 emergency when we were providing basic BLS care to the patient.
And what is the significance of those codes? Why is it important to have those coded correctly?
Those codes are used for billing to Medicare and Medicaid.
And is there a higher billing rate then for ALS versus BLS?
Yes, there is. There's a higher reimbursement rate for ALS calls.
Who did you talk to about your concerns?
Well, initially I discussed it with the commanding officer, whoever the commanding officer on shift, and that varied with different shifts, and there was a different lieutenant at times that I reported to. I also reported to battalion chief on the shift, and eventually I reported to Danny.
And Danny McGovern, what was his role?
EMS director, Charlie chief.
And when did you begin having these concerns?
In the summer of 2007, shortly after I started doing any reports on my own.
And what was your concern specifically about doing these reports?
Well, initially it was just a common sense factor that it didn't seem appropriate to code something ALS if we only did BLS service. My concern was I have 5 professional licenses, and from a common sense standpoint, to do something that I felt was wrong, I felt I was putting my professional credentials at risk every time I signed my name to a report that said ALS, but in fact, we only administer BLS care.
Excuse me, one of the commissioners can't hear. Is that microphone on?
It's on. Can you hear me now?
Just try to speak on it.
Can you begin to repeat that last answer?
Yes, would you? The question was I think the question dealt with why he was concerned.
My concern was that I have 5 professional licenses, 2 insurance licenses and 2 real estate licenses, as well as a paramedic license. And I was aware of the fact that if I was signing a report that I felt was fraudulent or that was indeed fraudulent, I was putting all of my credentials at risk. And I addressed that concern.
You addressed that concern in what way?
I told them that I felt these reports were fraudulent. I wasn't comfortable signing my name to them, and that I was not only putting my paramedic credentials at risk, but I was also putting my other professional licenses at risk by signing fraudulent reports.
What was the response that was given to you?
Basically to shut up and do my job. That's the way we do it. Do it as you're told. That's basically the response I received from the department.
And who gave you this response?
Well, it basically came through any lieutenant, battalion chief, any McGovern.
Did you personally talk to Andy McGovern?
Yes, on several occasions.
Did you, and that was the response that was given to you?
There were several things I took. When I had the concern, initially, I felt it was wrong. I did a simple search on the internet, a Google search. In a matter of minutes, I found the CMS manual, read it myself, took the manual to through the hierarchy in the department, including to Andy McGovern, showing him the CMS manual where it said that the coding was to be based on care given at patient side. And the response was, well, one of the occasions was Andy told me that's not what that says, basically telling me I wasn't reading it correctly. On another occasion, I again took a different section of the manual to Andy, and he told me that doesn't apply to us. We are an ALS-only service. I also have, there were other documents and other articles. There's an article by Fitch and Associates, and it's Danger ALS Level 1, something to that effect. But I also, the company officer that particular day, when I had that article, was Rod Livesay, and I took it to Rod. Rod said he was going to take it to Andy. I showed it to Andy. I was assuming that Rod showed it to Andy also. It specifically lists a list of criteria to be able to file an ALS Level 1 emergency report with Medicare Medicaid. Fitch Associates is a consulting firm, and it specifically says the criteria you must meet to file ALS Level 1 with Medicare.
And after showing this to Andy and the lieutenant, what was the response at that point?
Rod Livesay was supportive. Andy was, again, told me that that's not how we do it. Shortly after that point, or sometime in these, I don't have the exact date and timeline down here, but at some point I discussed with Rod, who was the acting lieutenant at the time, that, I don't feel comfortable with doing this. It's putting every paramedic's credentials at risk. It's putting every time you sign a report, it's putting your credentials at risk as well as your reputation as a paramedic when you sign a fraudulent report. I asked Andy McGovern if he would have a meeting with the city attorney to explain to us that we were covered in the event that something should go wrong with us. And Andy's response was, and it was Matt Brish with the city attorney at the time. Andy's response was, what does Matt Brish know about Medicare billing?
After this meeting, then, did you just let it go? Was that the end of it?
No, I also took it to the union. I took it to a shift meeting. I raised my concerns at a shift meeting, and I also took it to the union and discussed it with them.
And what happened as a result of your meetings?
Personally, nothing. I did have one meeting with Mike Fullen from who was with the Labor Relations Committee for the union. I had one meeting with Mike discussing it, and he was concerned about it, but the issue basically got crossed with the union also.
And why was that?
And basically, nobody wanted to buck the system. That's my opinion. But I was also told throughout the course of time that we've been doing it like this for as long as some people have been there. One guy was there 14 years at a time. We've been doing this as long as I've been here. And if we were doing something wrong, we would have been caught by now. And I explained to him that's not the situation, but it was not acting upon.
And so when you filled out these reports, did you always fill them out ALS then, as you were told, or did you?
Well, when it was a true BLS case, there were times when I put the BLS code on there, and others did also at the time. And at any point when, if you submitted a code, a HICPIC code that was not BLS or ALS level 1 emergency, any level other than that, you would get an email, a red flag email from Andy McGovern stating that he either changed it or directing you to change it to ALS level 1, and also to change the ICD-9 code to support your ALS level 1 coding. And the ICD-9 codes they're called a modifier. They're used to support, to justify it's supposed to be a description of why you transported the patient based on the care given at the time of transport. So if an ICD-9 code if you didn't give a patient an ALS care and you felt it was an ICD-9 code with a BLS, that corresponded to BLS care, and would make you change that to an ICD-9 code that represented an ALS code. He would make you upcode it to a higher level of care given to the patient.
Were these codes that would indicate a level of care that you never performed?
Yes.
And were you were ordered to make those changes?
Yes.
Did Mr. McGovern then also make changes personally? Did he change your report?
Yes, he did. At times he would change them, or he'd send you an email saying that he changed it, or at other times he would send you an email requesting that you changed it. And they always had a red flag on it. There was, everybody, if you come in for a following shift, you'd always check your email and wonder if you had a red flag remaining.
And was this unique to you?
No, all paramedics in the same situation.
Did you discuss this with other paramedics?
Everybody on my shift knew that I was uncomfortable with this.
Were
Everybody in the union that was in the union meetings knew that I was uncomfortable with this.
And were you the only one that was uncomfortable with this?
No,